Neither the Eagles nor the Giants would be in the playoffs if the season ended today. But listen, they're both still alive. That's right, everybody. The Giants are not dead yet because the NFC East is crazy town. Let's get out to the link where Steve Leutch is hanging out all day long. Steve, the Eagles, they are hurting coming into this game, and that's sort of an understatement.
Well, first off, Colleen, as you referenced, you can see behind me they are blowing hot air under the turf because it rained here most of last night, but the field conditions won't be an issue during the game. It's supposed to be beautiful by the time they kick off. But as you mentioned, that secondary, that is an area of concern. So how do the Eagles address it? They spent this week talking about the defensive front, and they're getting defensive tackle Tim Jernigan back after a season-long injury. They hope that fortifies the front. But to that point, Giants wide receiver Sterling Shepard said that the Eagles will be facing a heavy dose of running back Saquon Barkley again, who's coming off of back-to-back games of 20 or more carries. But Shepard also said they are not naive to the injuries in the secondary and that they have some things in the game plan to try to take advantage of those deep-level DBs. Back to you.
Thank you, Steve. It's interesting. They have like a giant blow dryer right now on the field getting ready for today's game. Steve, thank you for that. And look, we're going to talk about Saquon Barkley versus this defense coming up, but how good has Saquon been? He's currently averaging the 4th most yards per game for a rookie since 1970. The only rookie he trails here, Eric Dickerson, Edgerrin James, and Zeke. So that's pretty good.
That's pretty
company,
good company right
there. I know. So, Mike Robb, will the Eagles defense get back on track with pretty much a skeleton crew today?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard for me to say yes. I mean, there's just so many injuries in this back end. And then when they face another team's #1 receiver, they have to assert so many resources to try to stop that guy. And it showed itself last week when they played the New Orleans Saints and how they tried to take Mike Thomas out of the game. It opened up so many opportunities for everybody else. And of course, I got some film to show you.
Please,
show us. I am talking about right here. You see Mike Thomas come off the line. You have 4 Eagles right there.
Linebackers got eyes on
Linebackers,
him, yeah.
everybody has eyes on him, which opens up a nice throwing lane for Drew Brees to make an easy completion and get the first down. On the next play, you see the same exact thing. They're trying to take Mike Thomas completely out of the game. You have two Eagles defenders like gunners on punt return trying to take Mike Thomas out of the game, which leaves Malcolm Jenkins one-on-one with one of the most premier running backs out of the backfield.
Struggle bus!
Yeah, a little bit of the struggle bus right there. So the Philadelphia Eagles, that little horn, that gets me every single time.
That a boy, Rob.
The Eagles have to put so many resources to stop the other team's opposing #1 receiving threat. I just don't know if that's going to stop happening today. It's just so many things that they have to do to stop Odell Beckham. Not sure it's going to happen.
And it's not just Odell Beckham. They have to stop Saquon too, Steve.
They have to run the ball. Both teams are struggling running the ball. They need to establish the run. But here's the difference. The Giants have a guy they're used to running. That's why they drafted him. They want to run the ball. They want to run it all the time. Saquon left, Saquon right. Saquon up the middle, Saquon between the gaps and the tackles. A gap, B gap, C and D. But you have to run the ball, and the Eagles are struggling all around offensively. So what do I love using the word about running the ball. You know what you play? Keep away. If you can play keep away, but here's the difference with the Giants, though. They want to play keep away ball because they want to minimize putting the ball in Eli's hands, throwing the ball down the field. Eli is not what he used to be. Still a good, no longer great quarterback.
Even with a hurt Eagles secondary, bro, like why not just throw deep passes all over the place? They don't have none of their starters in, really.
That's cool, but even with the defensive secondary being limited like that, there's a thing, even though the wind isn't blowing, it looks like the wind's blowing when he throws the ball. It's kind of...
You can't just get at him like that, man.
The hell I can't.
Hey, this man won 2 Super Bowls,
That's
bro.
cool. You can win 5 Super Bowls. If you throw ducks, you're throwing ducks, pheasants, whatever bird you want to call it.
Any winged animals.
Yeah.
Any winged animal.
Yo.
That thing is...
You off the chain right now, bro.
But Saquon even...
Birdman over there. Look at
Saquon even got after them
Now watch out.
the last game, too. He ran 10 yards per carry.
Saquon called his shot in
against
that
them.
game, by the way. He told his guys on the sideline, keep plugging away, told the offensive line, I am going to make a play to change this game. And he had a 50-yard touchdown.
Well, it seems like somebody told him to stop bouncing outside and go north. It's something Saquon and I talk about on a weekly basis. Bro,
Wow, Mike Robb taking
go
credit.
north.
There it is. Okay.
Once you attack a defensive back and give yourself a two-way goal, you're almost unstoppable.
But that play was still not enough for that Giants team, who was a mess at the time. Now now maybe they're starting to believe, and Odell Beckham saying they're going to run the table might be pulling an Aaron Rodgers here. We'll see if they can continue to keep this rolling right here. I do just quickly want to go back to the Eagles because you're talking about this secondary, and then Steve was talking about the pressure coming from up front that the Eagles need to create here. There's a chemistry problem on this team right now, and Malcolm Jenkins alluded to it. Jason Kelce alluded to it. Then you had Fletcher Cox actually coming out the other day saying, I don't necessarily agree with that. The demeanor has been good all year. It's a problem right now, particularly on the defensive side of the ball. Yeah. And if they do not come together here and start playing better, I think you're going to see a vastly different Eagles defense from a personnel standpoint next year. They have got some decisions to make on that side of the ball.
Wow. Yeah. Because I know we have to move on, but your conversation with Saquon, like how does that go? What did you say to him?
A few texts back and forth, you know what I mean? Just letting them know what I see on tape. You know, I can't let everybody know exactly what I say to him because it's between him.
No problem. Just let me know.
You know, I'll let you know.
All right, cool. We'll do that during the break.
Perfect. Well, the Eagles, they're trying to break a 2-game losing streak, just like Carolina. And you know Charlotte will be lit up today with Panthers fans. Panthers, Seahawks. This game could go a long way in deciding who's in and out of the playoffs. Tiffany Blackman is in Charlotte today. And Tiff, a lot of people counted out the Seahawks when they started 0-2. It definitely wasn't me. Like, I was not one of those people at all. It was definitely me. But here we are today.
That's exactly what I was going to say. I was watching yesterday, and I saw you change your tune on the Seahawks like I'm sure so many other people are doing. And look, they've got this surprising run game. That's the best in the league, a top 10 scoring defense. And when I spoke with corner Shaquille Griffin, well, he told me the thought of being a playoff team, that it never left their minds. He said, Russell said it best, we just got to dream bigger. Griffin telling me we're trying to get to a Super Bowl, and his energy was just jumping through the phone when we talked, and he was sure pretty much after each question to let me know how excited they are about this game. And after this, 4 of their last 5 games are at home, and right now they are just on the outside of that NFC wildcard race behind Minnesota, and that is where we find our Tom Pelissero.
Kirk Cousins and the Vikings offense have not been their explosive selves over the past 3 games. Far less efficient with intermediate to deep passes amidst an uneven effort to establish a rushing attack. Receiver Adam Thielen told me, I don't think it comes down to calling the game more aggressive. When you do get the opportunity, you've got to hit it. But in a huge game tonight against the rival Packers, expect offensive coordinator John DeFilippo to open things up a bit. Cousins threw for 425 yards and 4 touchdowns in a Week 2 tie at Green Bay. And running back Dalvin Cook told me he thinks there will be more opportunities to run it tonight as well. Scheme-wise, we know it's going to hit, Cook said. We've got to take the fight to them early.
Thank you, Tom. Here's a look at the NFC North standings. The Bears out in front, and then the Vikings currently hold that wild card spot. And the Packers, they're 4-5-1. But hey, they have Aaron Rodgers. But you know what? I feel like that's not an excuse anymore. I can't just keep saying they have Aaron Rodgers, right? Steve, right?
Yeah, you can't just keep
4-5-1.
You can't keep saying that. I'm here with big homie Steve Smith Sr. Steve,
yes.
Which one of these teams gets into the playoffs, the Packers or the Vikings?
Boy. Well, I can tell you like this. I believe both teams can kind of lose and be out of the playoffs because both of them are playing Green Bay. I mean, both of them are playing the Seahawks, Green Bay. Seahawks have already beaten Green Bay, and then they're also playing the Vikings. So I can see it, not likely, but the Vikings most likely keep themselves in the playoffs, right? But
what did you just say? You said not likely?
I said it's not likely, but both teams, because they're playing the Seahawks, and the Seahawks are on fire, playing well, Seahawks have already beaten the Packers. They can possibly, Seahawks can possibly, if they finish it out, move up on the charts, and these two teams move down. The Packers are already, what are they, 9th or 10th, right? So you can just see, I can see them moving.
Man, look, the NFC North ain't getting 2 teams in. I think there's only going to be the Chicago Bears if they win it. The Chicago Bears will get in. I think the Carolina Panthers will get in as one of the wild cards, and I think the Seattle Seahawks will be one of the other wild cards. I just look at both of these teams in the NFC North. Green Bay, right now, you see some infighting. You see some Aaron Rodgers not happy about the play calling and all those types of things. They need to run the ball a little bit more with Aaron Jones. And then you look at the Vikings. They have Kirk Cousins, $84 million guy, who's throwing the ball all over the place, playing at an elite level at times, but not being the difference in games. And seems like they have some issues running the football. So I don't see both of these teams getting in, Steve.
Some of those issues have nothing to do with not wanting or desiring to run a ball. Their offensive line is not what it used to be. They've had some injuries. It's hurting them. And so when you have all those things, what we've seen, just like the Redskins, injuries right now plague teams and hurt their chances of making the playoffs.
Well, it looked like it's going to be a little bit of a struggle bus for either one of these
Get that
teams
horn. I love that horn.
to get into the playoffs. Colleen, back over to you.
I can't wait to see this game tonight. I'm also excited about this. The Patriots